Hi, my name is Thais Gibson. I'm the creator of the Personal Development School. This is your daily breakthrough video, and today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about who the fearful avoidant attachment style is according to integrated attachment theory. So, integrated attachment theory is a body of work that I developed and trademarked over the past 10 or so years. And it essentially takes our traditional attachment styles and overlaps them with really key factors. So, their core wounds, the relationship they have to their needs, the relationship they have to the types of emotions they tend to feel, and really what their relationship needs are in general, the relationship they have to their boundaries, as well as the different expectations they may carry in relationships and their different communication patterns. So we sort of break these things down because by understanding these things as individual parts, we are then able to recondition what's not serving, learn what the needs are, and then communicate them to partners or loved ones in a healthier way, and take each of those segments of information and use it to become securely attached by really clearly and specifically defining the problem. So today I really want to take you through who the fearful avoidant is and what some of these different main features are. So first and foremost, the fearful avoidant attachment style is sometimes referred to as the disorganized attachment style or the anxious avoidant attachment style. And it kind of, encompasses that they have the anxious and avoidant side to them, and that they sometimes have a disorganized way of attaching to other individuals. But for the sake of this video, we're going to just stay talking about fearful avoidant and call it that. The fearful avoidant is somebody who tends to be very present, very hypervigilant. They often come from a history of trauma that sort of fractures their ability to trust, usually because there's some kind of chaos in the home. And so that chaos leaves the fearful avoidant constantly walking on eggshells, trying to read between the lines, often really taking on other people's emotions and feelings, sort of enmeshing with other people, all as a sort of adaptation or survival strategy. Now, as a result of coming out of a home of trauma, or if somebody developed their fearful avoidant attachment style in adult life, which is very possible if you go through a really chaotic or traumatic relationship, you can definitely become fearful avoidant. Some of the core wounds are, first and foremost, the biggest one is I will be betrayed, like I cannot trust. And if you think about this from a childhood perspective, if you had a caregiver who was constantly unpredictable, so we'll just use the example of an alcoholic parent. If one day that parent is loving and warm, then the next day they are cold because they're going through withdrawals from alcohol and they're having a really hard time and they're cold and dismissive and angry. And then one day they're drinking and they're extra sweet and nice. And another day they're drinking and they become really angry and volatile. It's like there's no way of distinguishing how to attach to this caregiver, right? Everything's kind of in chaos. And so there's this assumed ability to not be able to trust that comes from that attachment relationship. It's like, I don't know how you're going to be. Like there's no consistency anywhere. And so this creates this inability to properly trust and attach. You'll also see coming out of these different dynamics and situations, and there can be many reasons, right? I go through this a lot in different videos on this channel, but there can be different reasons that a fearful avoidant struggles to trust. It doesn't just have to be like addiction or alcoholism in the family. It can be lots of fighting, lots of lying, a painful divorce parents go through. There can be so many different factors or potential reasons, but these are just some examples to illustrate. So some of the major core wounds you'll see are also, so I will be betrayed or I can't trust. I am unsafe. I am unworthy. I am bad, because when a child enmeshes and they're forced to super focus on the emotions of others to kind of like read between the lines and determine what somebody's feeling and what's going on, they often also really feel a lot of sadness for others and easily feel guilt. They still have that anxious side to them. So they will still fear being abandoned. And fearful avoidants are sort of the ones that come like, come close, come close. No, no, get away, you're too close. So they have that anxious side, that like fear of abandonment or being alone, but then they have the avoidance side that's more, connected to the core wounds of I will be trapped, I will be helpless or powerless or have no control. And then fearful avoidance can also feel not good enough, and afraid of feeling weak or disrespected or stupid. And so these tend to be major core wounds of the fearful avoidant as a whole. And it may sound like a lot, but really when we start doing core wound reprogramming and do reconditioning, remember, we're not born with these wounds. They're conditioned into us through repetition plus emotion. And when we use really specific tools to reprogram, these things can change, right? We can really transition out of these things and feel a sense of inner stability and sense of self. And I say that not just on behalf of myself as a healed, fearful avoidant, but on behalf of like thousands of students in the personal development school who are having major transformation, reconditioning their core wounds, and hundreds, if not thousands, of clients I worked with in my client-based practice over the years. So anyways, you'll see different emotional patterns come with the fearful avoidant attachment style. And by the way, too, we have a few things that I'll go through, like some other components here, but we have fearful avoidant reprogramming courses you can check out for free for 7 days if you want to start your healing. And also, if you want to do a training with me all about integrated attachment theory, how to recondition attachment styles and become a relationship coach, and also get access to like a full, half day of training on business and how to start a business and how to start a practice as a coach. Or if you have previous training as a counselor, as a therapist, anything like that, it's all about building up your practice, business, setting funnels, all these things after all of this training. And you can check that out as well using the link in the description below. So anyways, major tendencies of the fearful avoidant attachment style, when it comes to their emotions, they often feel like they identify most with being angry, hurt, frustrated, overwhelmed, feeling guilt a lot easily, sometimes shame, and also feeling pressure, like there's a lot of expectations. And sometimes they'll identify with like low level feelings of sadness, anxiety or anxiousness. And sometimes they will take things more personally and easily identify with feelings of being offended. Some of the major needs in a relationship, we can think of our needs, by the way, as like the lifeblood of a relationship. Like if somebody's meeting your needs in a relationship, it's like pumping the blood for it to keep thriving and surviving. So some common fearful avoidant needs in relationships are emotional depth, passion, trust, presence, a sense of safety. Although fearful avoidants won't consciously identify with that as much, but if they don't feel that in relationships, they'll tend to have a flight response out of there. A little bit of novelty, the growth, feeling like there's growth and progress in a relationship, and also their needs for freedom and independence to be respected and understood, but also having a need to feel like there is a lot of intimacy and closeness in the relationship. And fearful avoidants also generally want to feel like wanted, like their partner wants to be with them. They need some form of validation. Less so though than anxious preoccupied attachment styles. The relationship fearful avoidants often have to their boundaries is that they will be boundaryless in close relationships. And then eventually they feel frustrated of feeling taken advantage of because they tend to be quite generous and big givers. And then they will sometimes become volatile. They'll become frustrated. They'll feel hurt that their partner isn't reciprocating, and they'll push somebody away very far, not because they want to hurt that person back, but because they want to protect themselves. And so sometimes people wouldn't think that they're good at setting boundaries until they look a little more deeply and realize, well, I'm just good at setting boundaries when I'm very angry or hurt or frustrated. I'm not necessarily good at setting all the small boundaries and asserting myself on a daily basis in my life. So they kind of can become, they're essentially often people pleasers until they come out really strongly and no longer people please. And that can be more so our fearful avoidance leaning anxious, but generally fearful avoidance, even FAs with the DA side, can have some of those tendencies as well. Common expectations, actually, I'll go into this a little bit at a high level. Common expectations fearful avoidance have at a high level are that nobody should ever break their trust. Often if somebody's lying at all, they'll feel like they have to sort of run in the other direction. They often expect their romantic partner to read their mind, again, not from a place of like expectation, like you should be doing this. It's not conscious, right? It's that they are often trying to read between the lines and sort of mind read everybody else's needs. And they just expect somebody to show up in that same way to them. But it's because we project from our perception. They often don't realize that, like, hey, not everybody else is wired in the same way and feeling that same way. They also expect that their partner should want to keep investing in the relationship as much as they are. And they sometimes have a hard time settling in to the relationship. Like once things sort of become calm and they enter into the stability stage, if they have a secure partner, if they only have a partial FA attachment style and they get there, then like if they have a little bit of securely attached or doing the work, things like that, sometimes settling in and feeling safe and connected and it being calm in a relationship can feel very outside of their subconscious comfort zone and can feel kind of confusing and alarming. But that's just really pointing towards the fact that you have to recondition your nervous system to see that safety is okay, safety is healthy, it's safe to have a healthy, stable relationship. And eventually, it will feel like that's a good match. But if you have a really dysregulated nervous system, you're used to being in fight or flight, you're expecting chaos in a relationship to be the norm, then sometimes fearful avoidance will self-sabotage their relationships when they feel like people are too calm. It scares them, which is so like counterintuitive to how most people would think and feel. But whatever's outside of our subconscious comfort zone feels unfamiliar and feels like a survival threat because we haven't dealt with that yet. And, we've dealt with the chaos before. We know we survived that. So that feels familiar. So we keep trying to recreate that. When something feels too safe, fearful avoidants often don't trust it. And that's something to really work on reconditioning, which we focus on in integrated attachment theory. Common behavioral coping mechanisms are testing, withdrawing to decompress, like really icing everybody out and the world out, stonewalling when feeling frustrated, being spiteful when frustrated as well. Spitefulness is often that subconscious strategy for emotional connection. It's like, I want to make you feel how I feel so we can still stay emotionally connected, which is a pretty high need for FAs. It's just that spitefulness isn't the healthiest way of doing that, and there are better ways. Sometimes fearful avoidants can be critical or harsh with their words. Sometimes they can be emotionally volatile when really feeling dysregulated. Again, that's normal for anybody with a substantial amount of trauma, especially in our relationships and attachments. And then all four trauma responses: fight, flight, freeze, and fawn, the people-pleasing mode. And also sometimes fearful avoidants will fall into like excessive creature comfort. So, binge watching television, binge eating food, binge drinking, binge use of substances. It can be any of those things and others. But that is, again, also really indicative of having a lack of healthy outlets, and a lack of ability to really regulate on one's own. And so when we don't know how to do that or haven't been taught that in a healthy way, we regulate through external things, right? And in this case, that tends to be the sort of dynamic that you'll see. And you'll often see fearful avoidance as well communicate in ways that are kind of extreme, like almost like these all or nothing communication patterns where they can be really hold everything in, people please, not communicate much at all, or communicate in a really critical format, or sometimes a really vulnerable format that can be quite conducive to healing and growth in a relationship. But they tend to sort of sometimes miss that gray area, like communicating about all the small things that are going on and what their needs are and really showing up for them, often because there's this subconscious assumption that my needs won't be met anyways, because that's often the programming and conditioning they received in childhood. So these are some big things at a very high level around integrated attachment theory and sort of the theory created at the Personal Development School by myself, all about how these sort of relationship dynamics work and what it's really all about. So hopefully this makes a whole lot of sense. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already. And please check out those courses or the training with me if you want to do a deeper dive into healing or helping other people heal.